We need to be really serious on this topic, because it's easy to say, oh, these particular ancestors betrayed us and these one betray us and these one betray us. But we're not understanding that we are doing the exact same thing to Mama Africa right now. This is the Africa they don't show you. Who are you showing that to? Who are you trying to prove a point that we have roads, we have cars, we have electricity, malls, and beaches, and I don't know. Who are you trying to prove that to? Who? Oh, this is a nice destination. This will be a wonderful blah, blah, blah. Who are you trying to prove this to? I don't think we understand that there is a responsibility that we have when it comes to Africa. She provides us with lives. We owe her our lives. But playing this damn ass game because you want to go live, you want to do this, you want to do, you become a traitor, and you will be our children's children in history. They will read you as the person who betrayed, whether it's your hometown, your village, or something. There was a place that was sacred that you decided to expose on the internet for free.
I think one very unfortunate thing that happens when we talk about our history as it relates to them folks is when we take away the facts, or should I say not talk about as much about how we had encountered them folks before colonization and slavery. I think us not talking about that part in our history enough really takes away a whole lot of context as to exactly how we got here as a people. And hell, that might even be a reason why some of us still don't know till this day that we are supposed to be moving differently, a lot more differently than we are right now as regards to how much we share, right? Because this comment is coming from a video where I stitched this other brother's video, where this brother was basically wondering how exactly the Europeans got to know that if they came down to Africa, they would find an abundance of resources and people. And he asked in that video who told them where to go to find these things.
Who told the Europeans where to go? How did they know? What were they searching? They must have had some indicator that around this region of Africa, there was an abundance of not only black people, but riches such as gold. They must have known. What I'm about to share is there was a whole campaign of over 100 years to get to the western part of Africa.
Okay.
Right? So I'm like, someone told them. There must have been a major event that led to news spreading all over, all the way to Europe, that must have given indication that if you do come to this region of the world down south in Africa, there lies riches in both humans and whether it's gold or whatever it is.
Yeah, infinite resources almost.
And I responded in my video to his question saying that it was us who told them. Our ancestors told them. And I also brought into the conversation in that video that look at exactly how modern day Africans act. So willing we are, eager we are to share for free, not only online, but in real life, willing to share with people, you know, stuff that we shouldn't. Stuff that basically puts a target on our backs. And it's a historical behavior. And that's where this brother's comment is coming from, that video. And he's saying that we are talking now, yes, like present Africans are talking now and oversharing. But back then, our ancestors were not. I wish I could agree with you, but I really can't, because the history says differently. And sometimes certain histories can be hard to swallow, but the fact is the fact, and we just have to really accept these histories and learn from them, because denying them don't help us. That's the fact. But let's get into the conversation, right, of this history that you are arguing against in your comments, or maybe speaking against. Let me not say arguing. We are having a conversation here like brothers and sisters, right? We're not arguing. Each one teach one. That's what we're doing, right? So let's peel this all back. Let's really see how much we have been sharing. My light is gone. Let's really see how much we have been sharing It goes way, 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 way back to like pre-colonial, pre-European slavery. That's how way back we have been sharing. And if we truly want to get to the bottom of what exactly went down here, as much as we can at the moment, given, you know, what we have to work with, right? And also get to fully understand how we got to where we are at as a people, we have to peel this issue all back, as far back as we possibly can. Again, given the information that we have to work with. And where I'm going right now, where I have personally peeled it all back to, is the point where Africans, pre-colonial, pre-European slavery Africans, traveled all the way to Europe. Now, I know that might be shocking information that some of us just heard, because, you know, the history that we are taught unfortunately wants us to think about our ancestors as, you know, barbaric people who were not educated or had any kind of skill that is worth mentioning, or any kind of knowledge that is worth acknowledging, right? But, you know, the history and the facts says very different. The accurate history and the facts, not the skewed European versions that they want us to believe about ourselves. The fact is, our ancestors used to travel the world, and they went to Europe, and they went down there and they helped civilize them folks there, and they did monumental things, like also, you know, teach them basic hygiene and help them, you know, not die off during the Black Plague. This is fact. Them folks would have gone extinct, but, you know, Africans saved them. Some might say that's very unfortunate that they did. Given what they went on to do to everybody else, it seemed like the Black Plague was doing everybody a favor in advance. Only that our ancestors did not see it that way, and so they interrupted the favor that the Black Plague was doing for us all. But moving on, now we get to what the Moors did in Spain. They ruled Spain for a couple thousand years. And of course, during all of these encounters that African people had with the Europeans over there in Europe, they definitely were giving these people knowledge and information, not only about who they were as a people, but where they were from, what their cultures and peoples are like, and what their homeland is like. So these people don't they gather information, say not be today, but now let's fast forward to when the Greeks, you know, went to Egypt for information and knowledge. It took them, according to the history, a long period of time before the Egyptians were willing to want to share with them any information. But eventually, the Egyptians gave in and shared their knowledge with these people that they took back to Europe and rebranded and, you know, called their knowledge eventually. How plagiaric, that's a word, right, of them. It's a word. Moving on. So at this point, not only do we see that they had gotten information and knowledge from the Africans that they encountered over there in Europe, we see that they had also come down to the continent and gathered knowledge and information from the Africans over there in Egypt. But Egypt is in Northern Africa, right? And of course, it always gets a lot of like spotlight activities. But all of that they did in Egypt did not end in Egypt. They also came down to Western Africa, Southern Africa, and Eastern Africa. And when they came as friends. They came as people who wanted to be cool and do trade together. The pre-colonial kingdom of Benin, which, by the way, for those of us who don't know, is in present-day Nigeria, what the pre-colonial kingdom of Benin was like and what their relationship was like with them folks is a very good example for what I'm talking about. When these folks came on the continent, they did not come with their guns and, you know, full-on attack initially. They came as friends. They were very corny. They were very corny and calculative. Like I said, they came as friends. They came wanting to be cool. They came claiming to want to trade and, you know, learn about the cultures and the people. So, of course, everybody was laid back. They didn't seem like a threat. So our ancestors were very willing to share. I mean, we have been very nice people who don't mind wanting to share with people, and we still see this behavior too in modern day Africans. So our ancestors did not see them as a threat. Our ancestors saw them as, hell, they look physically different because phenotype and complexion, all of that, right? But, you know, they're human beings. I mean, they don't look like a threat, so they were laid back and they started sharing stuff. Told them about cultures, told them about practices, told them about spirituality, told them about, you know, places, lands, and resources, and people's way of life, and all of that ish. That was how these people basically gathered all the informations that they needed. And they took all of this, plus the other informations that they have been gathering, like I said, from the Africans that they encountered in Europe and the Africans that they met in other places on the continent as well, like Egypt, South Africa, and stuff like that. That was how they gathered all of this information, took it back, and started really forming their plan to conquer. Hence why they were able to host the Berlin Conference that, for those of us who don't know, spanned for approximately 4 months. You cannot hold such a conference for 4 months planning to take over a place if you have no knowledge about the place. And this is why I said in that video that our ancestors did not know any better. If they knew what we know today, they would not have acted the way they did. They have an excuse. We don't have any excuse as to why we still act this foolishly. Histories like this and the roles that we played and hell sometimes still play till this day, that help work to them folks' advantage, we have to acknowledge and learn from these things so we can start to do better for ourselves. Ignoring all of this is not going to change the facts, and hell will not even help us as a people. You learn from your past. If you refuse to accept your past, you can't move forward. Running from these histories because they hurt and we don't like what certain parts of the history says does not do us a favor. Actually, doing the direct opposite of that, running towards them and acknowledging them and accepting that they happen, actually help us. Because then we can look at these behaviors that were perpetrated in the past and say, oh, that's what we should not be doing, right? We can look at certain aspects and say, ooh, okay, now we know how to react and act if we see similar situations. But when you run from these situations or run from these histories and run from these facts and don't want to accept them because they hurt, you are actually doing yourself and your people a disservice. But when you study them, know exactly what went down, even though it's painful, you don't want to admit it because you don't like how it makes you feel. Cognitive dissonance might come in at some point because of how, not so comforting you are feeling because of the things you are hearing. But you have to make sure that your cognitive dissonance don't deactivate your critical thinking, because if you let that happen, you won't be able to learn from the situation. Then you will be bound to repeat history. Hence why we see our people today repeating history by being oversharers. As for this ending, I already made a video on it, so I'll pin it down below. I know this video is long, please bear with me, but I really want to share on here a video from a brother that I came by where he shared his own perspective and example as to how exactly the Europeans got to know about Africa, and that if they came down here, they would find an abundance of resources and people. So now I'm just going to let his clip roll. I will see you guys in the comment section.
Who told the Europeans where to go? How did...
This doesn't need to be very complicated. Let's get into it. You see, there are many ways as to which the Europeans would have found out about the riches of Africa, but I'm going to give you one example that makes sense because it's within the same time frame. You see, this guy here, Mansa Musa, we've all seen pictures of him. We've all probably learned that he was the richest man in the world. At the time, he's doing a lot of trade with the Arabs, who at that time are a pretty big deal. And here is a snapshot of the trade routes. And they'd go from here, from Timbuktu and everything, across the deserts. Wasn't the best of journeys or whatever. But anyway, they'd get the goods to North Africa and to Egypt and to Arabia. And once the goods get to Egypt and Arabia, the Europeans would have got wind of what the hell is going on. Right? Because these are big trading centers. Because at around the same time, there's another thing going on called the Silk Road. Now, we've all heard about the Silk Road as well. Marco Polo and, spices and silk, and that's the trade routes. So look, these things are crossing over. You're getting the gold coming from here, and then you're getting the Silk Road. So ideas are getting exchanged. Silk is getting exchanged. Products, spices. So people are talking to each other. So people are going to find out what's going on. But it doesn't matter for a bit, you know. The Europeans are letting the Arabs deal within the interior of Africa, and they're sticking to dealing with China because it's more profit. Whatever. It's just a thing that's working for everyone. Until the Nigerian movie Scary Music comes on. The Ottoman Empire closed the Silk Road. Oh my God! Where are we gonna get our silks and spice? Well, this is Europe going on. Like, where are we gonna get our silk? Where are we gonna get our spices? Where are we gonna trade ideas and technologies with the East? How are we gonna do this? We need to find another way to the East. And what is the only way to the East back in the day? Because back then, the Suez Canal wasn't a thing. You'll learn about the Suez Canal. Anyway, it wasn't a thing then, so you can't go here. You have to go all around Africa. So Europeans get together and they build big boats that can take them around Africa. But as they go around Africa, you need to stop off. And you need to, I don't know, you need to buy some chickens or some pigs or something. You need to trade for food. You're not gonna, your provisions are not gonna last you back then. Although people don't have fridges and shit like that back then. You know, you're gonna have to stop off. And when they stop off, a few hundred years, it just becomes a bit dirty and naughty and sad and dark. So, in Europeans' quest to go around Africa to get to China, they end up finding labor that ends up going that way. I mean, the consequences of the Ottoman Empire closing the Silk Road are so dire for Africa. But that's history. History, just the tip of a coin, and things are just very different for everyone. Tip of a coin, flip of a coin. But there you go. There's one example as to how Europeans would have known about what's in Africa.